Let's get ready to rumble!
Entrepreneur Weekly, presented by Vero Concepts.
Well, I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you, I make you laugh.
Our focus is on entrepreneurs and business owners. Look, nobody else is going to tell me what I'm worth.
I don't know what we're yelling about!
Yeah, overnight success generally takes 10 years of failure.
Loud noises!
No, I don't love money. I love making money.
Show me the money!
With special guests and audience call-ins.
Trailing off, and did I catch a niner in there? Were you calling from a walkie-talkie?
Welcome to Entrepreneur Weekly. My name is Keith from Vero Concepts. I'm here again with Vince. Say hello, Vince.
Hello, Vince. Yeah.
Saw that one coming. Thanks for joining us once again.
My pleasure.
This episode is one that I think anybody who's ever been in business of helping people be in business has come across more often than they'd like. And the topic of this show is leading a horse to water. And that's in reference to business owners and mainly how, people can know what they need to do, but don't do it for whatever reason. We're going to tackle some of those reasons, or at least what we believe based on personal experiences. And Vince, we both have been there more times than we'd like to admit. When you go to work with a business owner and you, as an outsider, see the things that need to be done to make them a better business, regardless of what it is, and you point it out and you explain it and you explain why and how in the benefits, and they still, for whatever reason, refuse to accept it or to change and to continue with their whatever habits and ways that they have. Do you find it frustrating?
I do. And it seems to me there are two basic reasons why people don't want to change. The first is because they're superstitious. They're afraid to change the thing because if I change that, then the business gods are going to curse me or whatever. And it's just, I don't even want to think about it because I'm too busy being emotional. And the other reason is what I call the dog paddle effect. It's like they learned whatever it was they were doing as a business by just jumping in and doing it. Like, they just will throw you in the water and you'll learn how to swim. And all they learn is the dog paddle. And they don't diversify into learning other strokes or other ways of getting along. And they're so rigidly attached to doing it this way because, well, look, it's worked so far. Why should I change? And you explain to them and you go, well, it's worked so far. Why should I change? I just explained it to you. I'd like to give you 2-3 good smacks. You should change because you're going to die. Well, it's worked so far. Why should I change? Okay.
But they don't necessarily see it, because they're in it?
It's literally the forest for the trees because there are people who started a business by the seat of their pants. They didn't have a plan. They didn't have an overview. They didn't have a view from, either from space or even from a mile up. They're in the trees and it's like whatever happens next is because that's what happens next, and you can't really plan this stuff. And they'll come up with all kinds of excuses, but essentially what they're saying is, this is the way I started it, this is the way I'm going to run it, and don't tell me any different because I'm so confused,
Well, I mean, it's just, a couple of your points. A lot of people, it's not like, I know there are business schools, but it's not like a vast majority of people that are in business learned how to be in business, right?
No, they didn't.
They want it.
Yeah, and because I got started in business when I was in high school. I joined Junior Achievement a year early, and I became part of the Junior Achievement Bank. You know, we handled all, you know, the banking needs of all the little businesses. Some were, you know, light assembly, or they did this or did that. I was elected president of the Junior Achievement Bank in high school. I've taken learning annex courses in college. I took economics, and I did this and that. But there are so many people out there who just have a general education, who got a business idea, and through dumb luck started the business and grew it to, you know, a certain point or whatever. But they really don't understand business as a subject. They just know how to do their business, right? I mean, Keith, I know you've had a lot of interaction with people who do different types of support businesses for the automotive field, whether it's a transmission shop or a this or that or the other thing. How many of these guys got their business, you know, their masters at Wharton to run, you know, their auto transmission? Yeah. Okay. And that's because it is pretty straightforward. You got a transmission, you got technicians or whoever, you know, people with grease all over their hands who take the old one out, they put the new one in, you write up a bill, you get paid, and then you move on from there. And there's no strategy behind it. There's no business acumen. There's no planning.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, beyond making payroll by the end of the month. And it's just, see, that's the thing. To get into business, it's not rocket science. It's not brain surgery. It's a few basic things. And there are very few who start out with a solid business foundation. Okay? I'll give you an example of somebody who did. There's a young lady just up the street from me who has a hair salon. And she had a plan that she was going to open her own shop, and she worked for a few years for somebody else, built up a client list, and then wrote up a business plan, went to a bank, got the financing, but she planned this. Okay? And it's almost exactly the opposite of the way a lot of these other people do. You know, I borrowed a little money over here, I got a thing over there, and I did a little stuff there, and I talked to the landlord, and he put in some fixtures for me, and now I have, you know, a gift shop, a used stuff shop, a whatever shop. And when you explain to these people there are some things that you could change that would make your retail experience a lot better for the customer, you know, leave at least 5 feet of space from the entranceway at the door to actually entering the store. If your stuff's too close, people are going to feel crowded, and they'll just look at you and go, but this is the way I got it, and I don't want to change it because, you know, this is what my customers are used to. Yeah, all 3 of them. You got any new customers? You know?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it too is, you know, you start a business, you're excited. So when you first start, you're putting, you know, all the blood, sweat, and tears, and every ounce of energy into it. So just out of sheer determination, you know, you're 6 months to a year, 2 years into a business, and you know, you're what you would have considered before you started successful. You're able to pay bills. You're able to, you know, keep a roof over the business and pay the employees or do whatever. You're making sales, you know, but, you know, how much of that is through, you know, the process of this is exactly where I thought I would be in a plan, as opposed to just shit luck. And, you know, a good idea can take you very far, but to take it to the next level even does require some form of education. It doesn't mean college. It means learning what you need to do, not be satisfied with that plateau of, yeah, I make money. You know, how much? I mean, I know being in the electrical field a lot, we used to run it. We run into it all the time, especially when the economy's bad. You know, we're a business. We have overhead. We have vans. We have human resources, office personnel, estimators. There's a lot that goes into being a business, and you charge appropriately. You can't just say, well, if I charge $80 an hour, that pays for a licensed apprentice to go out there and do the work. Okay, well, how much of that is your burden? How much of that goes towards, advertising? How much? There's a lot of things, and we're always competing with, especially when the economy's bad, people get laid off. They're Joe Blow in a pickup truck that go out and they're willing to work for a paycheck, $25 an hour, $30 an hour. And it's just a constant battle as a business owner to stay one step ahead. And you see it a lot in the trades, and I am sure plumbing and all the other trades are fairly similar, face the same problems. You see some that are 1 or 2 man shops, like, wow, these guys are, they got a great idea, they're doing really well, all of a sudden they're gone. They didn't plan, they didn't listen, and they didn't try to learn what they need to do or take advice or just accept the fact that they don't know it all, that they are an electrician, a plumber, a carpenter, and they're not a business person.
Yeah, and here's something else I saw. There's a program on very early in the morning on Saturdays, Your Business, and one of the people they profiled on it was this woman who makes hibiscus tea. Okay? Now, she's been running this, it's like a family recipe, and she's been running this business for 8 years now, and still doesn't take a paycheck. She's living off her husband's salary, right? And she said, all right, enough is enough. 8 years, okay? And she finally, they said, look, we're going to get a consultant in and say, what can I do? I want to take this to the next level. Because she's selling bottles of this stuff that, if you were to get Snapple or something, it's like $1.25. Hers sells for $4. And she can afford to pay her employees. She can buy the hibiscus flowers and, pay the electric bill and all. She just doesn't pay herself a salary. And she finally realized, I need help. It's like, now lead me to water, please, because I'm dying of thirst here. Yeah, and there are innumerable businesses out there that are running in a similar fashion. It's like there's one bill that always gets paid late, or they can't pay their employees a decent wage, so they can't get decent employees, or whatever it is. But they're just not making enough money to make this a successful business. Because I'd like to go back to a foundational principle which everybody must understand. The difference between a business and a hobby is that a business is designed to make a profit.
Yeah, a lot of people do that. I did it. I jumped into a hobby and tried to make it a business. Did it for 9 years. Did okay, but it was a hobby. And after a while, like anything that's a hobby, when it becomes a business, it stops becoming a hobby and becomes a lot more like work, and the fun stops real quick. But, excuse me, for example, the story you were talking about, 8 years of not taking a paycheck. And I wish this was rare, but it isn't. I know a lot of small business owners that don't take either. They take very little when it's available, or they don't take anything at all, but they're in business. And that, what scares me the most is a lot of those people, they're frustrated. They want to be able to take a paycheck, but they don't do anything about it. Ever, year after year. And I'm like, after year 3, if you're not, after year 1, if you're not making something, it's not a business. If you personally are not taking money, and to go that long without saying, okay, something needs to change, unless it's a business that requires you to be in business for 8 years before you can make a dime. And I don't know too many like that. I can't fathom the mentality of, I'm just going to keep dog paddling.
Yeah. Well, restaurants. A lot of restaurants, they tell you, look, you better come up with enough funding to run at a loss for like the first 2 years. And again, the kind of people who would open a business like that are people who know the business. They know that's the way it works, and they're prepared for it. But far too often, you're stuck in a situation where, this is something, it's like a family business. Well, it wasn't really a business. It was a family hobby, and you're trying to turn it into a business. Like my hobby, I make chocolate candy. And I mentioned that to a friend of mine whose family owned a fine candy shop. And the guy, heard I was doing, he says, whatever you do, don't start a business, because A, it's expensive because you have to have all kinds of climate control and very precise temperatures and all this other stuff. And it's like collecting bottle caps. It's not as exciting as it sounds,
Right. Well, I mean, what you were talking about before, I don't know about you, but me, I've noticed when we go back to, why people don't change, I see it constantly, but I see it a lot in generational businesses, ones that are being passed down from father to son or from grandfather to father to son. Well, this is the way we've always done it. And you would think, okay, times change. But if you're getting into, you're a third generation, you're pretty much been raised with technology.
Yep.
So why wouldn't you implement that into an existing business? And you see very, very successful stories. Those are the rare occasions. A lot of people they don't know what they were never really trained. They worked in the family business, and the family business will probably continue, and it'll do okay. But every generation, it just starts to creep a little lower or stay stagnant, which is the same thing as dropping, and eventually just goes out of business. And I just find it hard that businesses don't adapt to the changes that come or presented with technology or with just the ease it is now, as opposed to 20 years ago to trade overseas or to buy product from other countries or to sell product to other countries. All those barriers now are almost non-existent. And so many companies from one generation to the other just continue on status quo. And I want to say they're one of the biggest offenders of being stubborn and not wanting to knowing what they have to do, but just not doing it.
And I remember many moons ago, I was reading some business magazine or another, and they talk about shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. You get, grandpa. Grandpa starts out working hard, saves his money, starts a business, passes the business along to his son, who really wasn't all that inspired by the business, but went to business school and he learned all this stuff, and he essentially became an employee of the business even when he took over ownership, right? Mm-hmm. The 3rd generation, the grandson, looks at all this stuff, and you know what he ends up doing? Driving a truck, becoming a plumber, working for somebody else. And it's because if you inherit a business, unless you're like a farmer and it's in your genes or something, businesses aren't necessarily inspirational from one person to another. Okay, so if you inherit a business, you may not be all that inspired about it. You just like spending the money. And Keith and I both know of a very recent example of a couple of guys who inherited a business, and it's doing really well. And they have all of the flexibility and imagination of a rock.
Yeah, and that's a shame, because they are doing well, and they will continue to do well until they don't. I think they're one catastrophe away from going out of business, even with all that money.
Yeah, because they're just one bad quarter away from having to say, wait a minute, we should have done all this other stuff. And it's like, what are we going to do now? And the answer is...
And it's a heavy competition market with everybody else. All their competitors are doing what they need to do. So it's like a trickle thing. Eventually, I guess if you don't really look at your books very often, I guess it doesn't matter. But, they're going to start to see, a loss of clientele. And they're not going to know why, where, if they ever even look at this stuff, which from what I understand, they don't. But at some point, they're just going to say, okay, well, we're not making what we used to make. The economy is not as good. And that's another thing that when it comes to people being stubborn, I don't want to invest right now. The economy's not all that good. Or I don't know, presidential years, I see it in the trades constantly. People stop spending money. And it's crazy.
It's, I remember, I think it was 1980. I was working for a wholesaler, and this guy, we get into a discussion about business, and he asked me this question. He says, what do you think causes more people to go out of business, inflation or recession? And my immediate reaction was recession. He says, no, it's inflation. And just that kind of basic awareness of which is going to hurt you more it's so vitally important. Look, one of the things I don't want to do with this radio show is just tell you anecdotes about, this one did this wrong and this one did that wrong. What we both want you to do is to begin to think about your business, not just tactically, but strategically. And the only way you can have a strategic viewpoint is to have a basic understanding of the way things work in the real world, not in your, superstitious beliefs, like, look, I know I'm going to have a great month if I wear this special tie, because that's the tie that I wore when I got my big client, now the thing's got gravy stains on it, it's wrinkled, it's old, it's ugly, you should throw it away. No, it's my lucky tie. Hey, that's not what's going to make you successful in business. What's going to make you successful in business is having a hard-nosed approach to how you view the business, to realize that your business is going to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and to plan for it. And if you don't do those things, if you aren't willing to spend the money to get the education, which it's going to be different for everybody. You may need software as a service to help you manage the process of the way you do business. You may need to call in a consultant. You may need to fire your accountant and get a better one. You may need to do a lot of different things, but you're not going to know that stuff unless you got a plan, a written plan. This is not something you keep in your head. It's not top secret. Well, it may be
to them.
Yeah, or more importantly, you may need to keep it top secret from your competitors, but not from the people within the business, and most importantly, not from yourself. So when somebody tries to lead you to water, let them.
Yeah, I mean, and again, everybody's, the responsibility is on the business owner. You need to know what you need to know, if that makes any sense whatsoever. It's your business.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's your business.
What the hell do I know?
but it's your business, and to stick your head in the sand and run along status quo, whatever that may be for you, is not going to solve anybody's problem. Look, I mean, we're business owners. We do it because we're crazy and a lot of other reasons, but we do it because we enjoy it. We want to be our own person. We feel that compelling drive to say, screw the man, I'm going to do it myself. And, a lot of people's goals too are to create jobs, to create an environment where other people, you can bring them up with you on your road to success. And to stick your head in the sand is doing a disservice to not only to the hard work that you've put in, because no matter what, everybody's done hard work to get to wherever they are. Even to get started, it's a lot of work. So not only are you doing a disservice for that, but you're also not really doing much for the people that you're working with. It could be your vendors that you buy from. It could be your landlord that you pay rent to. It could be the banks that you borrowed money from. It could be your employees. All of them are counting on you. And that's what's keeping this machine of business rolling. And to just say, I'm fine the way it is, or it's not, this is what it is. It's the economy. I started a freaking speed shop September 10th, 2001. Right before 9/11. Okay. And the economy just shit the bed right afterwards, obviously. Never once did I blame the economy.
Yeah. And there's one other thing that I think it's important to point out to the listener, especially if this is the first show you're listening to. Keith and I both have the advantage of having failed a lot in a lot of different ways. So we know many, many different ways not to do this. Okay? If you're working a business that you inherited, if you're thinking about starting a business for the first time, or you have started your first business and you're afraid of failing, don't be. Don't be afraid to fail. Failure does not necessarily mean you have to close your doors. But what it does mean is you have to take a very hard-nosed appraisal of what it is you're doing now and what has to change. And that, more than anything else, will help you, because most businesses fail.
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Yeah, you lose out, and it's a huge burst to your ego, because let's face it, we're business owners. We all have big egos, but Vero Concepts, this company, for example, it's been around for a long time. I've reinvented myself 3 or 4 times. And most recently, I took a year off from the business just to reinvent myself, because I felt that even though I was doing well, it wasn't doing what I expected it to do. And times changed. Software came out that helped do what I was getting paid to do. There was a lot of things that went into it, but in the long run, taking that hiatus and stepping back and looking and say, okay, I'm doing okay, but I'm not doing superb. What do I have to do to make this business what I think it should be and what I want? And I completely reinvented the business. And it's a hard thing to do. And I don't care if you've been in business for, it's actually easier if you haven't been in business for a long time. But a lot of people, I don't care if you're in business for, let's say, 2 years and things aren't going well, or they're going okay, but you're still struggling. It's very hard to step back and say, okay, well, part of the problem is me. I haven't learned what I need to learn. I haven't asked the right questions. I have let my ego run this company for far too long. I need help. I need suggestions, or I need to change what it is that I'm doing. That is a very, and I don't mean in any way, shape, or form to take, just change. I don't take that statement lightly, because I've done it. And it isn't easy to stop what you're doing and think about the fact that it could be you. That could be the problem. And do something about it, whether it be just ask the right questions, whether it's to take that advice, whether it's to go and seek out somebody who has that answer or some semblance of an idea on business in regards to what you do. It's a hard thing to do.
But it's so worth it. It is so worth it. Because if you don't, then you're going to be, if you, like we, have talked to enough business owners and you've run into enough people who they're never going to get it. They're never going to change. They're never going to question themselves or anything else, because they're so rigid about the way they do stuff that you just think to yourself, hopefully you'll die, because there's no way you're going to change. Or somebody will come along like an angel and buy the business from you and give you monthly payments so that you can go off and retire or something. But you yourself are not going to change this. You're not going to be willing to step up and do what's right. So the best thing for you to do is to just go out of business. Please don't be one of those kind of entrepreneurs.
Well,
Please don't.
I agree, and I see it. I see it locally, but it's funny if you watch. I watch CNBC a lot, and there's a show on there with called The Profit with Marcus Lemonis from Camping World, and he goes in and he buys into small businesses if they fit his portfolio. And he doesn't always buy because, and again, it's TV, it's reality. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, I am sure. But if you look at it from just an entertainment point of view and you watch the show as a small business owner and you see some of the ways that owners, they're a dying business. He looks at their numbers and he looks at, the past 5 years. And you can see that the company is just bleeding, and it needs capital investment and needs change. More importantly, and what he'll do is he'll give you, X amount of money for a certain percentage of your business. You come to a deal, he's 100% in charge, and he'll come in and he'll do all these things that you're sitting back going, oh, that's brilliant. Granted, it takes some capital to do that, but that's brilliant. This is a great opportunity. And, he'll go back to his, castle somewhere, whatever he does, and he'll check back in a few weeks to make sure the things he wanted to get done got done. And he walks back into the business, and the owner changed everything that he did back to the way it was. And as a business owner or a human being, you sit there and you look at it going, what the hell? And you'll say, well, what happened to all this, this stuff that I did? I changed your menu boards. I did this. I did that. Well, I didn't like it, so I changed it back. And he's like, back to the way it was when you weren't making any money. But that's common.
And it's this whole comfort zone thing. And again, what I would implore every entrepreneur, whether you're thinking about, there's got to be a better way, there's got to be a way I can go into business for myself, or if you've already got a business and you're not absolutely failing, but you're going to fail if something doesn't change, please be willing to realize that if you are the problem, when somebody tells you what to do, listen to them. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. It just seems so silly that people won't be willing to change in order to achieve a real, lasting, measurable success. But they'd rather just do things the way they've been doing it because that's what they're comfortable with. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Hence the purpose of the show, because it is so common. It's baffling, and like you said, you have to accept the fact that you are part of the problem. If you're not where you need to be, you are part of the problem. Drop your ego at the door. Look around. Ask somebody from an outside perspective. Hey, this is what I got. This is my problem. Even if they're not a business person, but preferably a business person, even if they're not, they'll probably see the problem right off the bat. You can't see it because you're in it, until you step back in it. But if you're not willing to step back and at least look, ask somebody. And if they tell you, and then you ask somebody else, and they tell you the same thing, listen.
Might be onto something there.
Yeah. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. But you gotta understand that in business, you're here to make money, or you're here to serve whatever goal it is, whether it's a nonprofit or a charity organization. You're there to serve that ultimate goal. And letting your stubbornness and ego get in the way is doing a disservice to that ultimate goal, and you're sabotaging yourself. I don't want, anybody. I've seen a lot of great ideas and great businesses go under for this reason, and both of us, me and Vince, are huge proponents of small business. And I know sometimes these shows come across as doom and gloom, and it's all about awareness. Our intention is to make you aware of things that are in existence, and from personal experience, these things are hard to see when you're in your business day after day after day. You don't even realize it at all.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's one thing. Well, you learn from your mistakes. What's even better, learn from the mistakes of others.
that way.
Let somebody else pay the freight, but you learn from their mistake. You go on and you say, whoa, that's not what I am going to do. Look, the reason we're so passionate about this is fun. Being in business is fun when it's done right. When it's done right and you're doing something you enjoy, it's a lot of fun. And it's worth it. Because, again, it's not rocket science, but it does take some planning. If you do all those little things, you get it right, you're going to have the time of your life.
Yeah. And you can make such an impact on so many people, so many things, especially if it's a local. If you're something that you're a brick and mortar store and you're local, the impact you can make on your and this is part of the reason I'm so passionate about it. And I'm a huge proponent of local shopping and local purchases for whatever it may be. Granted, I do my fair share of shopping on Amazon. But when I can, I try to shop as local. I'll even pay a little bit more. But until a local store opens up, an Amazon store, I'm pretty much certain things I'm going to stick to online. But you can make such an impact on your local economy that I've seen so many mom and pop type places that have been around for generations go out of business for, the Walmarts and the Home Depots moving in. We lost a lot of hardware stores. We've lost some retail stores, but with every downside becomes, there's so many upsides and so many opportunities to specialize and do these things. I want everyone who wants to own a business to be successful in one way, shape, or form, and whatever their definition of success is. So when we have these shows, and we're going to continue to do them, if you listen, we're not only telling you that there's certain problems that this may not apply to you, but if it does, here's your problem. And if it does, here's how you fix it. Because, yes, being aware of the fact that there is a problem is the first step, but there's only two steps, being aware and fixing it.
Sure. I mean, look, we're not coming in here presenting ourselves as super geniuses who have the answers to all the questions. No, we don't. But we know what we know. And what we do know, we want to share. Because, again, we don't want any of you to miss out on the fun of doing this right. Because when you're doing it right and the money's coming in and you have a clear path before you to build the business even more, there's nothing like it. There's just nothing like it.
Absolutely. Well said. It's a rush, and we want everybody to experience that rush. And the rush feels even better after you've struggled a little bit and you've worked your ass off to get to where you are. And all of a sudden you see, it's like somebody flips a switch. It's like struggle, fight, work hard. All of a sudden, boom, everything takes off. And all that effort and time and money and sweat and your spouse being pissed off because you spent 60, 70, 80 hours at work, and then you're working on, it all becomes worth it. And that's the rush that an entrepreneur gets. And that's the feeling of euphoria of like, yes, okay, now what's the next challenge? And that's kind of what we're after here. So, well, once again, Vince, I think we've beaten this dead horse.
Yeah, this was another, this is going to be a 10-minute show.
Yeah, I know. It was funny. You guys could, some of you would probably say, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. And the others would go, really? I would never be able to tell. We don't plan these shows. I come up with a topic, and then we just talk. So
and again, it's because we failed a lot. We can talk a lot about all the different things you can do to screw this up, but we've also got the fix for you.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
I mean, okay, you in particular may have a particular problem that we would know nothing about, but we already told you what the answer is. Go find it.
Absolutely.
Go hire a new accountant. Go talk to a business consultant. Go talk to a retired executive. Go to your chamber of commerce, but don't just sit on your aspirations and hope that your lucky tie is going to get you through this month.
Absolutely. All right. Well, once again, time for some blatant self-promotion. We have a free goal planning workbook on our website, veroconcepts.com. Check it out. It's free. It does cost you an email address. Check us out on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Vero Concepts. Same thing on Twitter. Follow us at twitter.com/Vero Concepts. Pretty simple, branded across all three platforms. If there's something that you want us to talk about or, blabber on about for, 40 to 45 minutes, make sure you hit us up. Let us know. We'd be more than happy to add it to the list of topics to discuss. And once again, Vince, it's been great.
Always a pleasure.
Appreciate you putting up with me for 40 minutes. And I will cut this off at this point. And thank you guys for listening. Hope you have a great week. Make sure you grab the bull by the horns. I will talk to you next week.